if it's not Final Fantasy these days or Dragon Quest.
Yeah, no, like I see one like I didn't particularly like Vagrant Story myself, but they gave things like that, Xenogears, Parasite Eve a shot, and I was like, it was just a much more creative landscape for them.
Yeah, yeah. The problem is that Square Enix's budget started ballooning because they started focusing on graphics and not gameplay or story.
Yeah, it's true. Like I was actually just in a debate with another Discord friend of mine where he's sort of disappointed that companies can't have both innovation and technical prowess, and I'm like, look, if it's tough that you can't have both, but if I had a choice, it's easy. I'd rather them just make an innovative, fun game than a boring, good-looking one.
Oh,
But like,
you can have both. You just have
yeah,
to. Typically speaking, the companies that do both have great graphical prowess and, have gameplay innovations. You have to look on PC because
yeah,
if it's console development, like consoles have, typically speaking, once a console hits the market, it's already obsolete, and you can only pull so much performance out of a console. You can only do so many coding tricks to make stuff look better. Like you can only push it so far. And at a certain point, it's like you're pretty much just gonna like, well, this is what I got. This is the best we can do.
right.
Like a game that's coming out for the Xbox One or the PS4 now, like they can only push those even though those consoles are more PC like, but you can only push it so far. But on PC, you can do a lot more. Just by the nature of PC and all that type of stuff.
Right.
And you also tend to get a lot more innovation on PC nowadays. Now, occasionally, if we were talking 2, 3 gens ago, I would say consoles are more innovative. But now it's like a lot of the indie games, and historically, like if you look at the early '90s, like a lot of the games that basically kind of pushed a lot of gaming forward, like your Duke Nukem 3Ds, your Dooms, it's PC games.
Mm,
You weren't getting that on a console.
right.
Um, even RPG wise, I know people like, I love JRPGs. JRPGs as a genre would not exist if you didn't have Ultima, which was a PC game.
Yeah.
so So yeah, but if you want innovation, if you want like, oh my god, I want this game to be amazing and do something new that we've never seen before, you gotta, you gotta, you know, you gotta go on PC. Unfortunately, uh, like with console gaming, it's more like, hey, we've pushed like, what can we do within the limitations
Right.
of what we have? Like, uh, I'll use a cooking term. Making games on PC are like a chef going into saying, I'm going to make a meal, and they go into their kitchen and they have like a decently stocked refrigerator, freezer, and pantry and spice cabinet. Whereas making games on consoles is like going into the kitchen and saying, "Oh, I only have like only a third of the shit in here is actually fresh and I'm able to use, and the rest of it I'm just gonna have to make it up as I go along."
No, go on. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it's but I mean, on console, you're right. There is that dichotomy of, okay, like it seems on consoles you can either have games that look really good but ultimately are boring as shit, or you can have games that have kind of like a more simplistic style, but they get around that by having some clever hook underneath that.
Hey, actually, it's funny because whenever I did watch the PC gaming show segment during those trade shows back then, I remember I'd always see the console consumer and just absolutely flabbergasted because when they think PC, because the typical PC gamer sort of touts PC's power and efficiency
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time, but really what PC game developers I think are really developing are just things a mainline publisher wouldn't really let them make. they're going out of their way to go ahead and make more innovation. So, they probably aren't focusing on something as much as technical prowess as much. So when they see that, it was always a shock to them. I always found that hilarious.
Yeah, they're like, I can't believe someone would make a game about these crabs fighting each other. I'm like, yeah, they would.
Yeah,
It's on PC. Yeah, they do it. They don't look.
yeah.
I
It's
mean,
games are meant to have fun. Like they made they made a game called Moving Out where you and a buddy just go ahead and move furniture to a truck in hilarious ways, and I loved it.
yeah, yeah. It was. It felt like the unofficial side story for Order, not Order Up. What's that game?
the I know what you're right. Cooking something.
Yeah, the cooking game. It's like,
Right.
well, before they go and move this shit, they're gonna cook this shit, and then they're gonna get off of work early and go help me move this shit. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that there aren't games on PC that are like graphical tour de forces. Like, apparently, the Crisis Remastered collection is a
Mm,
motherfucker to run on.
some things never change.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, but does it run Crisis Remastered? No, it doesn't. Ah, man, your PC rig ain't shit.
Goodness gracious.
So, I mean, I'm guessing it'll be 5 years till someone can run Crisis Remastered properly uh,
Yeah.
on the new hardware. Like, yeah, I can finally
Uh,
run Crisis the way it was
And
meant
I
to be
think
played.
I think if we had two of those diamond graphic cards talked about a few weeks ago, we might have a shot in the dark at running it.
Um, I mean, and some people get mad about that, but I'm like, on PC, you need some type of game that's going to push stuff forward. Because really, it's not the graphical setting of the Crisis game, of the first Crisis, that made it a graphical tour de force. It was running that damn engine and all the shit that was being rendered while stuff was going on in that engine.
Yeah, one of the things that shocked people at the time is the fact that everything had a shadow property.
Yeah,
Even the leaves on the tree had a shadow property.
I mean,
That's just something that wasn't really seen
but not
too,
even that. If you blew up a building in Crisis, the very first Crisis, not the sequel that they pared it down to put it on consoles, the first game, if you blew up a building and bits and pieces of that building would come down, each bit and piece had its own property, the way it would fall, like in a semi-realistic manner. You had not had that in gaming at that point.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the engine was
Unless it
rendering
was
all of that, and that's
unless it
why.
was cinematically rigged for you, which didn't feel real at all.
Yeah, but that was more like an FMV thing where it was rendered
Yeah.
like, and it was pre-rendered and then animated or whatever. Like
Right.
in game, in engine, you had. So that's why Crisis, the Crisis engine was so uh that's why it was eye meltingly difficult for that um for PCs of the time to run that game, and that's why
Hmm.
it took about 3 to 4 years until graphics cards came that could run that game properly the way it was meant to be run.
Right.
Um, but I mean, you
mm,
need to have shit like that because you need like, there's a reason why CryEngine is known as a great physics engine for games. Um, like, hey, you have a game where you want to blow up a building and you want to see individual parts of that building come down in a semi-realistic way.
Hmm.
CryEngine, you know.
yeah. I always wondered. Speaking of advancement, speaking of graphical powerhouses or whatever. I remember when I started getting into PC gaming. I always wondered why shadows and even to a certain degree reflections took up so much, uh, required so much power. And one of the things about shadows and reflections is that they're different assets, or they're different assets. Like reflections that you see in games aren't necessarily real reflections. They're just a different, like it's essentially
It's an interpretation of a
uh
reflection.
or like, yeah, like when you see your character in the mirror, that's just a copy of that character copying the same animation that your character is doing. And same with the shadows. Shadows are drawn and animated to match their uh particular asset. So that's why one of the reasons they take up so much. That's reasons shadows take up so much performance, because it's also it's just more assets. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily a real shadow
but if
or
you play a
a real
game,
reflection.
and you turn off shadows, it looks weird.
Oh yeah,
Unless you're
yeah.
playing like a really simplistic game where it doesn't matter, like Minecraft or you
Or
know.
you're like a competitive in the competitive shooting, because a lot of competitors, they turn off shadows, so things
It
are a lot
increases
easier to see.
the performance, yeah, because
Yeah,
your graphics card and your CPU don't have to render that.
it increases their performance, and it makes other
Yeah,
people a lot easier to see, because they can.
it frees up assets. Your graphics card doesn't have to render that, so you get a steady frame. Like I was thinking to myself, I was like, what would I prefer in gaming? Because someone asked me this weekend, they were like, well, why do you talk about how some games on the Switch don't um like why are you harping about graphics? And I thought to myself, I'm like, you're construing me talking about certain in-engine issues with graphical fidelity. I don't really care about graphical fidelity on any console. I would rather have stable performance over graphical fidelity. My problem
Mm,
is that there's a lot of Switch games, like, if I'm playing a JRPG, it doesn't matter because JRPGs, unless you're playing something weird like a Legend of Dragoon, where you have time to attack stuff, or
right.
like a Paper Mario, like games that have like a weird type of battle system. Like generally speaking, you're just pressing a button. You're aiming at an enemy. You're targeting an enemy and pressing a button, and it just does
I
it.
hear you.
So you
That's why
don't.
I couldn't finish Dragon Guard 3. Had loads of those issues, but go on.
Yeah, you don't need like I don't need great performance with JRPGs, but if I'm playing something like the reason like I remember when I got Daemon X Machina, right? I got the demo on the
Mm,
Switch and it ran like ass on the Switch.
I heard.
Like I was like, I want to play this game, but I don't want to play it on the Switch. Like for a game where there's so much stuff going on, you're being attacked by all types of enemies. You got missiles and lasers and guns and people like trying to melee you all at the same time. And for it to run like this on this like on a console is embarrassing. And then I got it on PC and it runs pretty well. So I mean, that was like I would
Well,
rather.
that's not so much it's not so much graphics, it's performance.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that's a performance issue.
yeah, it's like, I get, you know, people complain. It's like, oh, why are you so focused on graphics? But when your game's checking, and you're having pop-ins like every step you walk,
I can deal with
it
pop-ins. It's
becomes
when it's
it
chugging.
becomes obnoxious.
Like I would rather have 720. I'll be honest with you. I would rather if the Switch scaled down to standard definition in handheld mode, like 640. Like I'd rather have 640
Hmm.
and 30 and 60 frames per second solid than have it try and do 720 and struggling at 30, which is what's happening right now with a lot of games in handheld mode. And I know some people will be like, "What do you mean?" Look, I remember playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on the Switch in handheld mode, and let me tell you something. That is a miserable experience. Don't ever play that game in handheld mode. You will suffer. Um,
I can vouch. They've slightly improved it, but the thing is, there's only so much you could do.
yeah, and I know what some people are gonna say. Well, they did the Switch OLED. Yes, because at this point, Nintendo is like between a rock and a hard place with their gaming device because it's so late in the life cycle. It's not worth them putting a whole bunch of money to do like a pro version of the Switch.
In addition to that, the OLED's biggest draw is it's really pretty screen. I just had it the other day, which is good, but that won't ever enhance performance. In fact, I think it'll just make the bad stuff more glaring, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean that, and plus the OLED display is just going to make colors look better. It's not going to. That's not going to increase the performance. And Nintendo isn't going to go and get a new chip from Nvidia to do a pro upgrade to the Switch. If they're gonna
Yeah.
get a new chip from Nvidia or anyone, whoever they get a new chipset from, that's gonna take a while for them to benchmark it and get the kits out and all that type of stuff.
Right. The best they could do, actually, I think, is they started with Nintendo Switch Sports, where they got that rendering software Fortnite uses, and they're throwing it on their upcoming releases. I think that's what's the best they managed so far.
Yeah, but I mean, you're gonna get like a minor boost on that because in
Yeah.
order for that to work, because that's from AMD's Pfizer, and the thing
Hmm.
about Pfizer is that you need a decent graphics card in order to use that, and the graphics set inside the Switch is not decent. It's actually like low tier.
Mm.
So like you might get a 10-15% boost, which for the Switch is amazing, but in the grand scheme of things, like if a game is really demanding, 10 to 15% boost really doesn't mean that much.
Right.
Like if your game score wise is like a 50% in terms of it running efficiently, and you get a 10-15% boost, that's still an F.
Hmm.
And
I hear that. Like,
that's kind of the because I think I was talking with Quan Manchu about it a few weeks ago, and he was like, well, Pfizer's gonna save everything. Pfizer, okay, if you have, because I have an AMD graphics card, if you have a mid tier or top tier AMD graphics card and you use Pfizer with it, Pfizer's amazing. If you have a mid tier or high tier graphics card, if you have a lower tier AMD graphics card, Pfizer is just going to give you a very small boost. Now, if you're playing a game that's already kind of like on the margin, like you get like 70%, like basically you get 70% of the way the game was meant to perform, and you get that 10-15% boost, your game's going to play really well. It's already playing okay, but it's going to go up to pretty well. But if it's already playing like ass, it's not going to get
mhm.
better. That little boost is not going to make it play that much significantly better.
Right. Like, from my point of view, it just seems like just some last minute PR just to alleviate some worries, but doesn't really sound like our situation's going to change much.
No, no. I mean, basically, you're gonna have to wait until the next. The way I look at it, you're probably not gonna see any substantial changes until the next gen, until Nintendo's next console comes out or
Right.
gaming device. Which I mean, I said this. Kenoshi and I agreed upon this. If you view the Switch as the successor to the Wii U, it's not a very good gaming device. If you view it as a successor to the 3DS, it's fucking amazing.
Mm.
Mm.
Um, it's got kind of shitty battery life compared to the 3DS. But if you take that
Oh
out,
yeah.
even the new Switch has shitty battery life compared to the 3DS. But you look at all the shit that the Switch is doing, it's like, okay, I can understand why this has. The only thing that I can think of Nintendo might do in order to increase the performance of the Switch is if they basically came out with an upgraded dock that had a processor in it. Like maybe charge people $150 for it, and like, hey,
Yeah,
this will
that was
boost the
the opinion.
performance.
Sorry, yeah, that was the opinion of a lot of fans. I mean, I don't know the first thing about hardware engineering, but however they'd manage that, if it were doable, that'd be awesome.
I mean, they kind of have that with PCs now. Like
Mm.
if you have like a laptop, you can like plug it into a dock, and that basically turns your laptop into a desktop.
Hmm.
Like it has an extra CPU inside of it that or there's like a thing that you can plug into your laptop that like if your laptop doesn't have a graphics card, you can plug an external graphics card to it, and that basically increases the power that your laptop has to like run games and do rendering and stuff. If you're someone who you know animates and all you have is your laptop or whatever.
Hmm.
So, I mean, conceivably, I'm just saying that would make sense, but at this point, okay, this would make sense if Nintendo did this 2 years ago. Now you're like 3 years into the life cycle of the Switch. 5 years into the life cycle of the Switch, going on six. Like at this point, it makes no sense to do that. um, no sense. But any other topics you want to talk about, Louis?
Let me see. Uh, I'm not sure if you guys already talked about it, but I saw. Ah, yes, Ray Liotta. I don't know if you guys talked about his passing.
Yeah, we did. We did
Yeah, I
talk about
talked
his
about that.
passing.
Ah, okay, okay. Well, I guess not to repeat anything. Gotta miss the guy. Like I said, Vice City was one of my favorites.
Yep.
I loved him and really high intensity actor. Dug him. Rest in peace, Ray Liotta. All right.
Yeah, I mean, because of Ray Liotta, we could get Samuel L. Jackson, James Woods, uh, Ice T in San Andreas.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ray Liotta had to break the door down so that other celebrity voice actors could come into the GTA universe. And that, I mean, really, that made GTA into a better experience. Um, um, this isn't really a
Right.
segue, but I watched a. You can go on YouTube and look at fan made renditions, like fan made vertical slice remakes of San Andreas in Engine 5,
Yeah.
and it looks fucking amazing, and it makes me so mad at the definitive edition remasters that were made by that trash ass studio in Florida. Um,
Right. Oh my God. What are they called? Grove Street Games, I think. And
They
I'm
used to
like,
be called something else, and they renamed themselves Grove Street Games. I'm like, how dare you? How
yeah, that's what I was
dare you?
thinking. I did not know that part because I was thinking Grove Street Games. Damn, that's the name of a company that's extremely inspired by uh 2000s Rockstar, and what a disappointment because from what I understand, a lot of that game's well, for lack of better term, that for lack of knowledge or better term, remastering. A lot of it was AI handle, if I wasn't mistaken, because some of the assets were some of the assets came out extremely ugly. A lot of the text was rendered again in Comic Sans. Just felt like a lot of it was done on autopilot.
It was. They only had like 20 people in that studio,
Oh goodness.
and most of the heavy lifting was done by AI upscaling. It was a cheap port job. That's what it was.
Mm.
It was a cheap ass port job, and they basically used AI upscaling. And the people are like, "Wow, this how do these games still have bugs from like the old gen versions of this game?" Because they didn't use the original console port
They
code in order
they
to
used
port
the
those
mat.
games.
Yeah, they used the mat. They probably ported the games from the old phone.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what they did.
and
They
then
used the
and then
phones.
they put it through they put
AI
it through a
upscaling.
magic machine.
Yep.
That's I like to call it the magic machine that actually had no magic. And
Right.
yeah, that's the mess. That's voila, you get the GTA trilogy.
That's
Yeah.
unfortunate because
Or
I had bought the trilogy on Steam like a decade ago, and it's gone now. I was like, ah, jeez,
Now, if
Jesus.
you still have your
Well, no, I meant on the store page. I mean, I still have mine, but yeah.
no, you can if you bought it on Steam, you can still download it off of Steam. If you bought
No,
it
no, I
even
meant
a
like for
decade ago.
people who hadn't
Oh
bought it.
no, people who didn't buy it, yeah, you guys are SOL. You got to get the shitty version. I don't know
Yeah,
what to tell you. I don't. I mean,
yeah,
there
no.
are ways to get better versions of GTA around. I'm not going to elucidate them here, but they exist. But
Right.
like because really the GTA version that they remade and released and had the nerve to charge people $60 for, which is really the most egregious thing. I'm like, this shit is not worth $60. Maybe 30,
Yeah.
maybe even 40. You could get away with 40.
Couldn't even throw in the stories games either to pad it out. Shame, shame, shame.
No, that would have been more work. And these, I mean, look, Grove Street Games has proven they are some lazy, sorry ass bastards. Actually,
Right.
no, I take that back. I think it was a small studio who basically they're the port studio for Rockstar. Like they're the
Uh,
mobile port studio of Rockstar. They're the people who ported Bully to smartphone and it fucking was terrible. They ported GTA.
I had not even heard that that was ported to smartphone because I had played the GTA 3 mobile port, and I mean, that
It's
plays exactly
terrible.
how.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's. I mean, mobile ports of most games are terrible.
Hmm.
Like I've never played a mobile port of a game, except Tetris. Tetris is really hard to fuck up because Tetris is really
Hmm.
simple. But
Leave it to Ubisoft. They know how to do that.
yeah,
Right.
I said most. I didn't say all the time. I said it's really hard to fuck up Tetris. I'm not saying it hasn't been done because EA did it, Ubisoft did it, but
Yeah.
by and large, it's really like if you go and get like a basic version of Tetris, it's really hard to fuck up Tetris because
Right.
it's really
Yeah.
simple. Like you have to
Yeah.
go out of your way to fuck up Tetris. You know, I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying it hasn't been done. I'm just saying that.
What else was there that I want to talk about? Oh yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard of this because I pay attention because it reminded me a lot of the old Mana games from back then. I used to really enjoy Mana. Um, called Trinity Trigger. Um, it's a sort of it's a development behind with some of the minds from Xenoblade, 90s Pokemon, and there was a fourth individual. I can't remember his name, but yeah, it was a nice little trailer. It had sorry, I got a trailer recently. I think a gameplay trailer. It to me it reminds you of straight up old '90s Mana
Secret of
right there.
Mana. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That when I heard about that, I didn't see the trailer, but I'm like, well, I mean, if it's as good as Secret of Mana, I'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like Secret of Mana. Ironically enough, I didn't like the remake. Not the remaster of Secret of Seiken Densetsu 3. I know they called it Trials of Mana, but in my mind that'll always be Seiken Densetsu 3.
Right.
I didn't like that remake. I'm like, this doesn't even feel like the same game.
Yeah, I didn't really get into it either. It's like,
It's funny. I'll tell one people if you guys ever complain about the Xenoblade 2 dub, you have not played the Trials of Mana.
No, it's not very
no,
good.
it's
Not
pretty
even the
good.
dub.
No.
It's just the way it plays. It doesn't because I like okay. I was one of those people who the first time I played Seiken Densetsu 3, I illegally downloaded it using off of a ROM site and then patched it and played it like that. And it basically felt like they took the battle system in Secret of Mana and they
Yeah.
refined it, and it worked. Like if you played Secret of Mana, they basically said, okay, Secret of Mana's battle system is serviceable for Secret of Mana, but it could be better. Then they made Seiken Densetsu 3, which is like a better version of that battle system. And then they remade it, and I'm like, this doesn't feel a damn thing like it doesn't even feel like it's in the same universe.
No, I can understand what you mean. Sadly, what it is just because someone went ahead and told it to me straight. Because it's not SquareSoft making a game that they made; it's Square Enix making a game SquareSoft made with very little to no context of the ideas or attitudes those developers had
Exactly.
when they're making it. Yep.
Exactly. And that's kind of like the problem I have with a lot of the remaster Square Enix does. I'm like, wow, this is shit. Like y'all
Yeah.
really did not put any real effort into making this, did you? No, we did not. We're Square Enix.
Yeah, no, that's why it's disappointed me the Crystal Chronicles because Crystal Chronicles to me I thought could have been the successor to Mana after that fourth one just didn't do anything. But when they finally remastered it, I was like, no local co-op. Like I don't know, like that was one of the biggest things I was excited for to finally play with my buddies, but I have to play with them long distance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, clearly they just didn't care at that point. Like it was
Yeah,
clearly just a cash grab for Square Enix because Square Enix.
unfortunately.
I mean, this is what we get out of Square Enix these days, folks. Square Enix is not equal to like those old math problems they used to tell you equal to, lesser than, greater than.
Yeah.
It's like Square Enix is not equal to SquareSoft. They are not equal.
Hmm.
Don't get it. Don't get that shit twisted. It's like in Dragon Ball Z where Goku and Vegeta fuse together and become a more powerful version of themselves.
Right.
Well, it's like SquareSoft and Enix fused together and turned into a turd. Fusion, ha! Poof. Oh shit!
And
It's a big pile of shit.
And outside of Dragon Quest, what were the properties they got in that merger with
Who
Enix?
Enix?
Yeah.
I mean, Enix had a lot of stuff they were sitting on that they're still sitting on, like Evo, the Quintet trilogy, which is Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously,
See.
Dragon Quest Monsters. Like here's what people don't need to understand: Dragon Quest has always been in Japan was more profitable than
Oh
Final
yeah, it's a
Fantasy.
holiday whenever whenever one comes out.
Like Dragon Quest sales wise in Japan kicks Final Fantasy's ass in Japan.
Hmm.
Now, Dragon Quest never took off in the rest of the world like it did.
I want to say it took off recently, but it's got more prominence, I suppose.
I mean,
But
how's it going, Malta? Yeah,
Well,
I want Dragon Quest to be good, but the problem was that Dragon Quest, like Dragon Quest 11, was kind of underwhelming for me.
Okay.
Like eh.
Yeah, no, because I bring them up again because I'm just realizing that Square is just, for some odd reason, just reviving the old Enix half of IPs with that Valkyria profile thing, Star Ocean, and
oh, you guys played Valkyrie Profile too?
oh no, I've never played a single game in the
Uh,
series.
I
I am
remember
curious
playing.
though.
I remember seeing the arcade version of Valkyrie. Not I'm thinking of
I guess
another
gnarly.
Valkyrie game. Yeah, I mean, I've seen Valkyrie Profile. I always thought it was kind of a like, despite the kind of anime friendly graphics, it's a surprisingly
Yeah.
dark game.
Mm.
It's like, oh
I
shit,
like the
this is dark.
second one better. The first one sucks.
I mean,
I never played it, but I'm judging off of gameplay alone.
they're both
Like seeing it.
they're both kind of dark. They're both kind of dark games where you play a Valkyrie and you recruit the souls of dead people to fight demons and stuff for you. And then the story gets progressively darker as you get along. And I'm like, oh, I enjoy this, but the battle system was a little bit different than what I was used to. Like the battle system in Valkyrie Profile is kind of like another August RPG called I forget the name of it, but it was this series.
Eternal Sonata?
No. It wasn't Eternal Sonata. It was another Gust RPG that was kind of like it was. It was ostensibly in the same universe as the Atelier series, except instead of it being built around alchemy, it was built around music. So
That
like,
sounds like Eternal Sonata. I'm thinking.
no,
Oh
Eternal
no, no,
Sonata was just one game.
Artanelico.
Yeah,
Artanelico.
Artanelico. Yeah, the Artanelico series, like where your character becomes like a conductor and he has to insert gems into the female characters and it has a sexual connotation. Kind of
Uh-huh.
like that's how the combat system was in that game, and that's kind of like except like Valkyrie Profile had like was even more so because it was like you had to get the timing down right in order to send your combos. Kind of like those Monolith Soft RPGs like on the Game Boy Advance and
Right.
DS.
Oh, nice. Like which ones?
Uh,
Which ones specifically?
Capcom cross Sega cross
Project Cross Zone.
Project
That one.
Cross Zone, stuff like that. Kind of like
I
how
never heard of that.
well Project Cross Zone is it's the sequel to Namco Cross Capcom. There were two games on the PS2 that were never localized because of rights issues. And then the series was brought to America first they released an RPG called Saga Cross Frontier, something like that. It was like a
Right.
straight up RPG, but the combat in the RPG was in such so that like basically each character was assigned a button, and when you fought enemies, you basically would a targeted enemy, and then you would start the combo with that character who was assigned to that button, and then you would basically swap out. Like you'd press a button at the right time to continue the combo going forward, and basically, if you could fill up certain meters, you could do like an ultimate combo where it did even more damage, more hits. I mean, really, like Monolith Soft really knows how to make games that really hit that gamer. Man, I got to get this high score. Ding 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 ding
Oh
ding. I got it
yeah.
going.
And what's the game called?
Uh, Here, let me. I think it's called. Let me look it up. Monolith Soft. I know they made it. Here, let me look and see their game.
I want to say Soma Bringer. I didn't play that
No,
one.
no. Super Robot Tyson OG Saga Endless Frontier.
Ah, okay.
That's what it's
Let me
called.
look it up.
And it's actually pretty good. I have that game, and it's actually pretty goddamn good. They also did Namco Cross Capcom, Bait and Katos, which I fucking love. Bait and Katos. I don't like Bait and Katos Origins. Fuck that game.
Xenosaga, but I only like. Sorry, I hear only the third one's good. I did not like the first one.
Yeah, I've played Somabringer. It's kind of like, it's not that good. I know some people are gonna get mad at me, but it's really not that good.
I understand. I've never played it myself.
Then there's they did Dragon Ball Z, Attack of the Titan, Attack of the
Saiyan.
Saiyans. Yeah, I mean they make some pretty good games, but most of their games have been like Project, like the Cross games, and Xenoblade and Xenogears.
Mm.
Oh,
Well,
they did.
I gotta.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead with what you're saying because I had a different topic.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You can...
Oh, I was gonna say with Mario Strikers coming out, what, how would you guys, how do you guys think a Mario American football game would play?
I could swear that already existed. No. You know what? I'm thinking of hoops.
I would love
Huh.
a Mario and American football game.
So I was thinking about that today, and I was like thinking about. I don't know a ton about football, but I think it'd be entertaining.
No, you know what? People would absolutely love the physical contact that comes with football and Mario. It practically,
especially with the power ups and
right.
like also the it'd be funny to
You know,
hear like professional sounding commentators.
you know what they
talking
could
over
really
the-
look to for inspiration? There's this game by the Games Workshop guys called Blood Bowl.
Yeah, it would be like that, except Mario-fied, so less bloody and violent. It'd still be violent because it's Mario, but it would be
cartoonish
less bloody.
violence.
Yeah, cartoonish violence. I could see, except they'd have to have a dynamite adventure mode where like it starts out in the Mushroom Kingdom and Mario has to put together a team, like by going to different areas and completing challenges, and then it would culminate in each kingdom, like him facing the champions of that kingdom
Right.
with his team, and you could like recruit other characters from other kingdoms to help you out. So like if you go to Bowser's Kingdom, you could recruit Charging Chuck linebackers, stuff like
Ooh.
that. If you like completed a challenge, it's like, hey, you're gonna have to get your running back to do a 40-yard dash faster than a Charging Chuck running back, and if you can do that, you can recruit Charging Chucks. So you've kind of got that whole team management thing, but also like the Camelot RPG thing where as you complete challenges, as you win games and stuff like that, you get experience, which you can use to level up your players to make them better.
Yeah.
They get power ups. Hey, your Toad got a star, so they can use their special. Your Toad quarterback got a star, so now they can use their special like guaranteed to land in the ends, to hit it's guaranteed to reach whoever they're throwing the ball to, whoever the receiver is. It's guaranteed to reach them, and if anyone tries to intercept it, they'll just explode.
All right. Like another thing that really drew people to Striker is that I don't think this new one has. I'm still optimistic about the game. Was that its strong sense of aesthetic, art style, and creative decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the studio that made the original Strikers isn't making this one, so I'm kind of like,
Right.
Who's making it?
I don't know, but it's not the original studio, because the original studio who made Strikers, I think they got bought out, or they are making something else. I can't remember, but I know it's not the original studio making this one, so I'm kind of like underwhelmed. And plus, I don't really like playing soccer games anyway.
I wouldn't. I don't either, but this game looks fun to me, and I never. I always thought the game looked interesting. I never got the one on GameCube, so I don't know.
Yeah,
The
I had the
first
one on
one was
GameCube was pretty
developed
good.
by Next Level Games, and this recent one was developed by Nintendo EPD and Next Level Games, but I'm not sure how much involvement Next Level has with it, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's
But yeah, but a football Mario, I think that has, especially here in the U.S. Like even though I'm not into football myself, the culture is alive. Like They love it. Like when
Yeah.
I remember when NBA, what's it called? Not NBA Playgrounds, I think it was called.
I know what you're talking about. It was the one. It was the EA NBA playground, but it was the one that was especially for the GameCube that just like it had Nintendo characters in it. Like you had Mario, Donkey Kong,
Yeah,
Bowser, Peach, Yoshi.
yeah. Even when some goofy stuff like that. I mean, I still think it was great. That'll do it, man. Actually, I think Next Level Games actually did a bunch of those. Like they did NHL Hits Pro, which was wait, no, that's a normal one. Never mind, Punch Out. Oh, never mind. But yeah, no, I think something, even despite how cartoonish it is, I think a lot of the football community and even people like myself would embrace it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like I don't like I prefer arcadey sports games, so that's perfectly up my alley. Like I don't want
Mm.
it's like the real thing. Fuck you. I don't.
Yeah, no, I don't want
Yeah,
to. I
I'm
don't want a simulation. I want to
You
go
know.
ahead and just win.
I mean, I want to.
yeah.
No, go ahead, Kenoshi.
I remember, speaking of realistic games or whatever, I remember as a kid, always wanting to have a game look realistic or be a graphical marvel. But now, just that the older I get, it's like I don't really care about that stuff anymore. I just want a game that
You want to have fun.
you know, yeah, I want to have fun.
Yeah, you want to
That
have
Most
fun.
of
doesn't
us.
interest me anymore. Yeah,
Yeah, like I just want to look. I want to play a sport. I want to play a football game where if someone gets smashed, gets sacked, or there's like a massive pile up, I don't have to worry about like if I watch real football, I'm like, man, those people's bodies are fucked. Whereas if
Mm,
I'm playing an arcadey game, I'm like, oh, it's just a game. Like I don't have to
right.
think about, oh man, that dude's gonna have multiple concussion syndrome. Are they
Mm,
probably gonna go fucking crazy in 10 years and kill their family or kill someone or do act crazy like Aaron Hernandez did? Um,
mm,
like I don't want to deal with that shit. So I'd
right.
rather play arcadey stuff than real. Like, oh, that's so realistic. Look at the sweat on that player's face. No, no, no. I don't know why Nintendo's never made an arcade version of
Football?
yeah, of a football game, like a Mario-ized football game.
Let's
I
find
think they
out.
didn't they do a Mario baseball game.
yeah,
Yeah.
they did.
I don't want to call it swings, but yes, I know what you're talking about. They did golf, baseball, basketball, soccer.
I know baseball is pretty popular in Japan as well as
Yep,
I don't know how popular basketball is, but I think if you were to
fairly
make it,
popular.
I think if you were to make a American football game, I don't know if it would do well in Japan. So
Yeah,
Well,
but I
I think
mean
that's
they're
probably why they don't make it.
yeah, but the thing is that
Unfortunately,
they are a worldwide company.
yeah, like
yeah.
Zelda up until Breath of Wild was practically a non-entity in Japan, but they kept making them.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just saying, like, okay, like they're always using retro for shit. Why don't they use retro for that shit? Not right now, because apparently they're working on
Metroid Prime.
Metroid Prime 4, which I don't think that game's gonna come out for the Switch.
I'm thinking it's a Breath of Wild case too, where the last minute it'll get a port for the Switch, but really it's
No,
whatever Nintendo's coming out with
I don't.
next.
I want them to cancel that for the Switch because I don't want that game to be held back by the technical limitations of the Switch. Because
Mm,
if you're releasing if you're releasing if you're doing Metroid Prime 4, like every Metroid Prime game expanded the world and made the stakes bigger, right? Like the first Metroid Prime, you're on Talon 4. Metroid Prime
mm,
2, you're on Ether and the two planets, right? Dark Ether and normal Ether. Then you've got Metroid Prime 3, where you've got like four planets and a space station. Uh, Not the full planets, but a decent amount. So you've got to go bigger now, okay? And all these games had like I think on the GameCube it had I think it was 30 frames per second or 60, like it was solid, okay? The Switch can't handle that. You can't have all the shit you're gonna have in order to make this game the graphical immersive tour de force it's gonna have to be. And because I mean, I don't know about you, but I got Breath of the Wild on the Switch, and I remember playing that game and having it crash on me like 3, 4 times. if you played it longer than like 3 or 4 hours,
Hmm.
the visual RAM would start crapping out on you, and it would start slowing down and glitching out, and then it would crash.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't, you know, I really don't want that to happen to Metroid Prime 4. So I'd rather them just say, "Look, we're working on it. We're not putting it on the Switch. We're putting it on our next shit. Like, make it a launch title for the next shit coming out."
No, no, that's exactly what I was implying because Breath of the Wild, it was originally developed for the Wii U, but then they just kind of,
Yeah, then they did a
yeah,
dual port, but I'm like,
yeah.
I don't even want it to be on the Switch. I want them to take advantage of the new hardware so it's not running like ass.
All right.
Ass. And I know people like, I got a Switch for Metroid Prime 4. If the only reason you bought a Switch and waited 5+ years was for Metroid Prime 4 and you didn't play any of the other stuff, any of the other awesome shit that's on the Switch, that's your fault.
Yeah. I like for myself when I had the PS4. Right now my PS4 has paid itself back. I haven't turned it on in maybe a year and a half now. But yeah, no. Biggest reason I'm avoiding even buying a PS5. What would I buy it for?
I mean, like the exclusives. They keep on saying the exclusives. They're coming. They're coming. We promise the exclusives are coming. I'm like, okay, when are they gonna get here? Because I'm waiting. I'm
Uh,
waiting.
Yeah, and why do you guys think? I have an answer for it, but I'm curious in your answer. Why do you guys think people are so much quicker to are so quick to uh emulate PS or Nintendo games faster than the other consoles?
You
Personally,
mean
my opinion is
what
that
do you mean emulate? You mean pirate, or do you mean emulate as in copy what Nintendo's doing?
Like emulation, like emulate their systems, like
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
because Nintendo games are like even if you get
they're
them
easier
used.
apparently.
Well, if you get Nintendo games used, they're like even if you get them and there's a slight discount, you're still spending between $55 and $50 for a Nintendo game. Whereas the used prices of everything else goes down by a decent amount. And also, Nintendo systems are easier to emulate.
Yeah, right now even PS3 emulation still isn't quite there yet. It's getting there, but still isn't there, and that was 2 generations ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess in addition, another thing, along with those prices there, because Nintendo's core audience is pretty big. They're always depending on them and their blind loyalty at times.
Yeah.
Another thing is that most people just don't want to shell out that much for a Switch when they're really just wanting to do a thing. Because the truth of the matter is, there's just a wider selection for your casual consumer on on PlayStation or Xbox. While most people buy Switch for a very specific selection of things,
Yep.
or mostly indies. Like myself, I enjoy playing indies on my Switch. I'm a child of the GBA, PSP, DS era. I've always liked to be out and have my system with me playing something easy like Hollow Knight or something nice like the Final Fantasy X port or something like that.
Yeah, I would say that there's a third reason, and that's just that like Nintendo doesn't make it easy for people to play their legacy content. Like
Yeah,
you
that
either
too.
have to keep it or hope that you can get it on the virtual console, which they shut down for most of it. Um, or spend $50 a year to have access to a small curated library of games. I would say about half of them aren't really worth playing,
Yeah,
unfortunately. I
that's
mean,
true. Like
you know,
Square nor Capcom aren't interested at all in letting their games on that service because every time I see one of those infrequent updates, it's always something I don't even think you guys have heard of. Clyde's Mining Quest 4, and I'm
no,
like, I
they're
don't.
games I've heard of, but I'm
Good.
like, I wouldn't want to play. Like, okay, I'm one of the rare people that I'm the antithesis of the Nintendo Online service because I have a collection, a physical collection of these games.
Hmm.
I have these games. I have the original hardware. I've digitized most of my library. Where I've copied the ROM and put it on a SD card. So for me, not all my library, but I have a SNES 2 flash cart where you can put a flash card in it, a micro SD or an SD card, and you can play your entire library, patched everything. You can put the M.2 master sound files on there and play games with orchestra. You can play Legend of Zelda with orchestrated soundtrack, which sounds fucking amazing, by the way.
You know,
Listen to the Dungeon of Darkness, the orchestrated version of Dungeon of Darkness theme from Koji Kondo, amazing. But you can only do that by emulation. You can't.
you know,
Nintendo's not doing that shit.
I'm beginning to think the reason they released these little NES minis, SNES minis, or those throwback Game and Watches is so that they'll give you a means to pirate them, but to charge you for it first. Because I know a lot of people love to hack them. Go ahead and
Yeah, but I
play.
mean, you couldn't even get you still can't really find those things. You can't get new ones. You have to get the old ones or refurbished. And I mean, why should you have to go and buy something like that and pirate it in order to put more games on it?
Mm,
Like I mean, the problem is that we have a real issue with game preservation, retro game preservation, from a lot of these companies because they're because the way I look at it is this: if you didn't get the money you wanted from Chrono Trigger in 1996 when it came out, let me look this up. Chrono Trigger, because I know Chrono Trigger was came out. Let's see, Chrono Trigger. See, Chrono Trigger. Okay, 95. 96, I was close. If they didn't make all the money they were going to make in the numerous times they re-released this fucking game, why are you still, why don't you just, charge people $5 to download the ROM, and then they can emulate it any fucking way they want? Why are we still, why do we have to jump through all these hoops to play these old games?
right.
I don't see the point, because and I'm saying this as someone who has the original hardware and has the original games. I have bought Super Mario World 6-7 times now. Okay? I have the original on the Super Nintendo. I have the special version that was made to go on the second reprint of Super Mario All-Stars that added Super Mario World to the cartridge. I have Super Mario World for the Game Boy Advance. I have Super Mario World on. I have Super
Right.
Mario World on the Wii Virtual Console. I migrated over to the Wii U. I have Super Mario World on the 3DS.
Well, and I totally get your frustration. Whereas, suppose for me, it's they do that for people like me because I remember when Skyward Sword and Link's Awakening were getting those HD remakes. Well, Link's Awakening got a full-on remake. I actually have an old Game Boy Color cartridge of Link's Awakening DX. Sadly, I no longer have the means to actually play this thing. Whereas for Skyward Sword, I never got to finish it since I didn't have a Wii myself. Um, so yeah, they go ahead and release those games, so I can go ahead and pay that premium they did for some HD upscaling. But yeah, so I guess as someone like you who probably has a Wii and the copy of Skyward Sword, it just seems
I
like
don't have a copy of
shameless.
Skyward Sword.
Never mind.
I borrowed Skyward Sword and I played it, and I'm like, this game has a lot of really good ideas. It's too bad they spent so much time working on getting the shitty motion control to work instead of
Right.
fleshing out the world.
Yeah,
That's kind of the problem with Skyward Sword for me.
it feels for me like just a good tech demo where it's trying all these fancy new bits because the world of Skyward Sword it's dull. It's just 4 really intricate levels
That you
separated by
revisit multiple
zones.
times.
Yeah.
That's kind of the flaw with Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword has so much promise, and instead of the developers spending their time fleshing out the world and building up the world, they had to get the motion control to work.
Right.
Which is important because if you take the motion control out of Skyward Sword, it's just a very basic Legend of Zelda game.
No, that's true.
I'm sorry.
when you play it without it, I actually thought it was a lot less fun, and I stayed with the gyroscopic controllers the whole time. But now it just doesn't feel quite as legitimate because with the Wii Motion Plus, it depended on you keeping a certain position and
Stance,
angle to
yeah,
imitate a sword. But the
yeah.
gyroscope, I could literally have my hand tilted behind my back, and as long as I have the angle right, I can hack away.
Yeah, the problem, I mean, one of the issues, and this is like a character flaw of Nintendo, is that Nintendo sometimes gets so hung up on their gimmick
Hmm.
that the gameplay suffers.
Yeah, they can. Like
Um,
Ring Fit Adventure is one.
I heard a lot of people like that because it made them move, but I'm like, I don't want to play a workout when I'm playing a video game. I just want to play the fucking game. If I want to work
Yeah,
out, I go to the gym. I go swim. I go swim. I do laps in the pool for an hour. That's my fucking workout. When I come home and sit down and play video games, I just want to fucking play a video game.
right.
Why are you doing this? Well, it's exciting. I'm like, no, y'all, there's something going on there.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that's my thing. But for me, yeah, I'm like one of my favorite things uh with the big N with Nintendo is I really like I do like how they are innovative. I think that sometimes they get so hung up on a gimmick that it makes the game itself suffers. Like I would
Mm,
rather play a good game that has less gimmicks than a game that could have been great, but you had to force a fucking gimmick into it. Like that's where Star Fox Zero kind of took a hit for me because I'm like, if y'all had just focused on level design and stopped trying to get all these various gimmicks to work with the levels, this would have been a great game. It's good, but it could have been great.
right.
But that's my own personal opinion. I could disagree. Kenoshi, you have any other topics you want to add before we move on to the final bit of the cast?
Um, let's see. Oh yeah. Obviously, I was gonna give my answer to why Nintendo games are emulated so quickly. Is obviously with Sony and Microsoft, their games are pretty much everywhere. A lot of Sony and Microsoft, at least the third party stuff's pretty much everywhere. And it's getting time where a lot of the first party stuff is probably going to be everywhere too.
Mm-hmm.
So rather Nintendo, you can only get your systems on Nintendo consoles, and a lot of people, funny enough, are kind of cheap because Nintendo games don't go down in price as quickly as say the other
It's
stuff
always
does.
consistently $41.
Yeah, yeah. If you
Yeah,
get a
yeah,
discount, it's only going to be like $10, maybe 19. That's the lowest you're
yeah,
going to go. Occasionally $39.99 plus tax is still over $40.
You get Nintendo
yeah.
Gold coins, but that requires you to do some big spending already to get essentially what's a $2 discount coupon.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you got $2 off. But fuck you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I buy maybe 6 games, and altogether that brought it down to $10.
Yeah, yeah. It's but yeah, I agree with you, Kenoshi. I do think that there is kind of a cheapness associated. Not a cheapness. I think that people want to play those games, but they don't want to do the investment to be a
No, they don't
Nintendo
want to buy.
gamer.
They don't want to buy the. Yeah, they don't want to buy Nintendo hardware and deal with Nintendo prices.
That too,
Yeah,
and there's also still the pervasive stigma that Nintendo's just for kids or
and
casuals.
families. Yeah,
That that's actually a big reason why Bayonetta's 2 and 3 and even Xenoblade 2 kind of get this weird look to them because they have an element to them that isn't quite seen as family inclusive, but
I mean,
it's a start.
I mean, Bayonetta's never been family inclusive. I mean, you have this lady who her outfit is her hair, and in order to defeat enemies, she basically gets half naked or completely naked. You just don't see it, but it's heavily implied, and uses her
Right.
hair to create eldritch monstrosities that fuck people
Mhm.
up. And she's bi. Right now,
Right.
she's in her lesbian phase. All right. Okay, that's. I mean, this isn't exactly. Hey, mommy and daddy. Why is this lady so hung up on this other lady? We'll
Like,
talk about it in the future.
I
And then you've got, but I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the opposite end, because Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is such a step back from the first Xenoblade Chronicles in terms of maturity level. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 feels like,
it's very Saturday morning is what I
yeah,
called it.
and not even like late Saturday morning. It's that early morning, easy peasy, not very dark shit. It's like, okay, whatever. I think
It
Xenoblade Chronicles 1 was darker. Xenoblade Chronicles X was darker.
it
Um,
kind of reminds me of Breath of Fire, really, where Breath of Fire at first, kind of starts out very fantastical fare, but then the further you get in, it just gets
it
weirder,
gets very
weirder.
dark though. Breath of Fire gets
Yeah.
real dark towards the end. Like, it's got
Yeah.
genocide and murder and
The monsters start
brainwashing.
looking really bizarre too.
Yeah. I mean, like basically Xenoblade Chronicles 2 felt like, here's what it felt like. Now, I don't know if this is
Hmm.
true. I don't have any sources. I'm not going to pull that. My uncle works at Nintendo, and this is how I know this. It feels like Nintendo felt that the first Xenoblade Chronicles did okay. Xenoblade Chronicles X flopped because it was on the Wii U, and they were like, we gotta make this more mainstream. So they basically stripped out a lot of features that were in the previous two games in order to make Xenoblade Chronicles 2 more family friendly. Like, hey, remember how in the first two games how you could dress your characters up in skimpy outfits?
Oh yeah, that I missed that feature.
You can't do that here. Hey, remember how you actually had a main character who actually had some depth and complexity to him? And Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and X, your main character didn't have a lot of depth and complexity, but the world had depth and complexity.
Hmm.
That shit's out the window in 2, boy.
I understand because 2 got rid of well, because X was truly open while 1 was several interconnected zones.
Yeah,
2 is really several stages since there's no way to connect any of them. They're all just sort of pads that you
that's true.
warp to.
That's
Yeah.
true. And the thing about 2 is that that game, oh man, that game performance wise, it struggles.
Oh
I
yeah.
have never heard my Switch struggle to load an area more than playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Warp someplace
Oh.
where there's a lot of shit going on. Literally, you can see the game struggling to load the area. It loads the base textures, like the basic geographic mapping, and then it loads the textures on top of that. Like, what the fuck is this shit?
They ended up releasing a patch that, well, here's the thing, it's not a fixed what they did is they made the loading screen maybe 1 or 2 seconds longer.
Yeah,
So when it's finally done loading, you only see everything you just talked about for half a second now. But the thing is, I could still perceive it for that half second.
yeah. It like basically seeing how poorly Xenoblade. And here's the thing, okay? People are like, oh, you're just shitting on that game. No, I actually like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I beat it.
I love it.
I rushed through that game. I 100%ed it, found everything, defeated all those super bosses you meet in the game. You're like, oh man, this dude's tough. Once I unlocked press button to win mode, I went back and kicked their asses.
Mhm.
Maxed out all my characters. I love that game, but I'm not gonna lie and say, oh, it runs perfectly on the Switch.
No, it's true. Like I said, I think it's a beautiful game, but it has performance issues. I won't be glib about it, you know.
I'm not gonna lie just because I like the game. The game
Yeah.
runs. Okay, if you're in an area where there's not a lot of stuff going on, it's not bad. But once you start getting to areas where there's a lot of enemies, there's a lot of NPC spawning. Oh boy, that game.
Yeah, and it's true because that game has at one time over 6 party members out on the same screen with a lot of effects going here and there. And the thing is, Monolith Soft, what concerns me is that while I think they do a pretty fantastic job of optimizing Switch as best as they could, like here's the thing, there's always going to be a little bit bursting in the seams. Even they're not perfect. I am concerned that Xenoblade 3 is gonna, because it looks like
Yeah,
they're even doubling down on a lot of what's going on.
yeah. That's why when I heard that, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna wait for this game. If this game is a dual release and it comes out on Nintendo's next hardware, I'll get it there.
Mm,
because hopefully there'll be more hardware power available and you'll have less performance issues. Because after playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and having that game crash on me 3 times, I'm like, nope, not again.
right.
Nope, you got me once, not gonna get me again.
Yeah, like when I played Definitive Edition, it runs mostly smoothly, but
Yeah, but that
there
game's from 2 gens ago.
exactly. But which leads me to the next point. When it does get to a point where you do have a lot of stuff, you sure you have to manipulate it a bit. Um, it'll happen. You'll see it go down to 20 from 30.
Yeah.
It'll happen. Yeah. But yeah, well, I do love my Switch. I like you said, I won't put it, I won't pretend not to see it.
Well, it's like Xenoblade. It's like what's his name? The guy who's the president of Monolith Soft. He said like people like, why don't you
Takahashi.
port? Yeah, why don't you port Xenoblade Chronicles X to the Switch? He's like, do you
Yeah.
know how much work that would be? How hard that would be? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Like
can understand that because that game that you had to download 2 patches to get that game to
to
run properly on the Wii U,
decrease load times. Yep. It
and there
was
was a
a
lot of
busy
shit
game.
going on in that game. And you
Yeah.
still had pop in, but not the. It still ran better than Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yeah.
So, and that was on the Wii U. And I love that game. I liked how on the Wii U, if I was stumped in a puzzle, I could open up the web browser, which you don't have on the Switch, and
Right.
go on the internet and look up. Oh man, I'm here. Okay, how do I do this? And then find it, and then go back to the game and keep on playing. Can't do that on the Switch.
I hear you. It was a technical feat. Like I think at the time, 2015 when it came out, I'd say that was the most technically impressive game of the year at the
Oh
time.
yeah.
Even more so than Witcher. Well, I think that came out 2015. But
Yeah, that game was bigger than Skyrim. It was bigger than Fallout. It was bigger than The Witcher.
yeah,
Like people forget just how huge and like the different biomes felt different.
yeah,
It wasn't
and
like how they did in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where you go to a new area and it's like, oh, these are new enemies. It's the same enemy, but now the giant mutant wolf has a horn, just one
mhm,
horn. It's like
yeah,
the enemies actually felt different. The biomes felt different. The enemies felt different.
movement felt very free. Like it's a damn respectable game. I will give them that. Like, yeah, sure, you can put marks against it for the story, since really they ended up developing in such a way where story just ended up becoming an afterthought.
Um,
But hey,
I'm gonna disagree. The story was there. It's just your main character wasn't the central protagonist of the story.
righto.
The characters in your party were the central protagonists. You were just along for the ride.
Mm.
There was a really good story. You just had to do the side quests in order to get it, and that's where, like,
That's sort of a divisive area for a lot of JRPG fans, where they sort of like a linear storytelling, but I
yeah,
think what you're describing they call it dynamic. Because dynamic storytelling is, I guess, something that a lot of Western RPGs do a lot.
yeah, and a lot of people don't like that, and I can understand that. But, um, like, I I like linear storytelling where you're being guided down a path too. When the story is good, um, but I'm not going to say that every linear story is good in JRPGs. As a matter of fact, most of them uh, fall down into a series of boring ass tropes. Even Xenoblade Chronicles 2 fell down in a series of tropes. Rex finds a magic sword and he winds up hooking up with a girl, but it turns out she's got a split personality and becomes another person. But they're both. I mean, it's just like this is insipid. Please stop.
I
Yeah,
understand.
we've been here. We've done this before, guys.
I've watched
done this
so
so
many
many
anime
times.
that have done this same thing. Could you do something different? Which is why I liked like the first Xenoblade Chronicles. It starts out like, oh, we're gonna go down trope land, and then there's a
Mhm.
twist that happens halfway through that game where you're like, fuck, I
Right.
wasn't anticipating this.
No, I hear you. My personal experience is that Xenoblade reminds me of a lot of stuff like early Dragon Ball, or some like maybe even Saint Seiya, and then the sucker punch of the big twist you're speaking of really only comes really, really late when you really wanted it earlier, because that game has about 18 chapters, and the first 10 of them are sort of aimless. It kind of reminds me of early Xenogears, where you're just kind of going by the, you're just going to the next plot
Yeah, they
beat.
tell you go here, talk to this person,
Yeah.
and then something happens. But then as you uncover more in the first Xenoblade Chronicles, you begin to see where things aren't adding up. There's something going on that your party isn't being told about.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're waiting for the shoe to drop about what's going on and what you're not being told about. And then when it drops, you're like, I wasn't anticipating this shit.
Right.
Which is what makes it such a good twist. I mean, like, okay, and look, I know people are gonna be like, what are you talking about? Look, they essentially the same plot from Xenoblade Chronicles, the very first Xenoblade Chronicles. They reused that plot from Bait and Katos.
Oh, and they reuse that from Xenogears as well. I mean, I'm not doing a. Actually, I'm just saying it's something that I think he really wanted to tell again and again to like possibly get sequels and complete that perfect work story he was trying to do all these years
Yeah.
ago.
But I mean, personally, I like Bait and Katos. I think Bait and Katos does the twist better than in
Okay.
Xenoblade Chronicles because in
Mhm.
Bait and Katos, you don't know about the twist until you're halfway through the game, and when it hits you, it's a betrayal. It's like, I can't believe this.
I hear you.
No, it's like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Revenge of the Sith. You were
Right.
meant to destroy the Sith, not become them.
Nah,
Some
I
shit
hear
like
you.
that.
I ended up having to look at the finale of that game because where I couldn't, because I simply just didn't have the JRPG
Chops.
chops yet. Exactly, was that three boss battle against the guy who was ended up revealed to be your father and his two cohorts. That was exactly like literally the very beginning of this too was where I just couldn't make it any further and it
Now,
broke my
this is
heart.
Bait and Katos, or
Bates and Katos.
well, in Bait and Katos,
Hmm.
you watch this on YouTube, right?
I did.
Okay. I'm gonna spoil that for you.
Go ahead.
That guy is not your father. Kalos, basically, Bait and Katos steals a lot of ideas from Star Wars. Kalos is
Hmm.
basically Anakin Skywalker. He has no father.
Hmm.
He's fatherless. He basically is the essence of a fallen god.
Malpertio something.
Malpertio, yeah. However, he's an imperfect being, which is why he only has one wing, because he's an imperfect being. Now, Bait and Kato's origin tries to fill that in by like retconning some shit, which is why I
Hmm.
ignore it. It's also not as good a game as the first one.
Hmm.
I mean, the battles are faster because instead of each character having their own deck, all three characters share a deck. Which
Yeah, you didn't like that? That feels like a lot of less busy work, but hey, that's
no,
just me.
I like the concept of constructing a deck. Okay, when I play JRPGs, I like the minutia of going into the fine tuning my characters and their equipment.
Okay.
And I like that. So when they took that away, we're streamlining, and I'm like, oh shit.
Oh, you definitely would not like Kingdom Hearts because it's entirely out of your hands. They act how they act.
Yeah, I like going into the minutia and fine tuning what my characters use, how their attacks go, what weapons they use. Like
Hmm.
I liked in Bait and Katos where you could go in and essentially fine tune your deck. Like you could have a character, okay, you're gonna take pictures. That's what you're gonna do. I know you're a magic user, but we need money. You're gonna take pictures. You're gonna make shit. I'm gonna give you this power helmet and some rice and some water. You're gonna make shit. Me, I'm callous. I'm gonna go in here and fuck these dudes up. Okay, let's do it. So I'd have one person on either making rice or making wine like sake, then aging the wine to make it into aged sake.
Hmm.
So, and then I have another character taking pictures, doing the right setup, because initially the cameras you get in the beginning of the game suck. So you
Oh
have to
yeah.
have a magic user who can get the right light level so that you can take pictures and get your money. Um, and so that's how you make money in Bait and Katos. You don't get money from like
Yeah, you just end up have selling very specifically really good magnets. Like there's one of my favorite ones that you find this piggy bank magnets that has nothing in it, but as the game progresses, it'll get fatter and fatter. Should you delay in selling it, it'll just be a broken piggy bank that'll get you nothing.
yeah, you can do that, but the way to consistently make money in the game is taking pictures of monsters, but they have to be good pictures, which means you
Hmm.
have to give them to your magic user, normally Shella, because she can use light and dark magic. You give it to Shella or Mizuti because she can also use light or dark magic. Basically, you give it to them so that they can get the light exposure level proper, and then you can take pictures of monsters. Taking pictures of boss monsters gets you a lot of money in Bait and Katos.
Oh yeah.
So that's how you make money in the game. I really wish they would re-release that fucking game. Namco Bandai's been sitting on Bait and Katos for a long time now. I wish they would fucking re-release it. I wish
It's true because they were approached on an HD re-release of Xenostar. I was like, those games don't need HD re-releases; they need remakes. And they pretty much said that their JRPG properties they don't predict they'll have a lot of interest in buying them, which is a shame.
I don't know about that, but I would love another Bait and Katos. I mean, even if they just made it digital only and just put it on the Switch and the PC,
Okay.
I'd get it. Because I have a physical version of Bait and Katos and Bait and Katos
Right.
Origins, but I prefer the first Bait and Katos over Origins. Because I think the first Bait and Katos is fucking amazing.
And in your opinion, sorry, just a random question. Your opinion, who do you think is mostly responsible for how good Bates and Katos is, Monolith Soft or Tri Crescendo?
Um, I think that in terms of gameplay mechanics, I think that's Tri Crescendo. I
Okay.
think in terms of the general overview of ideas that created it, I would say that's Monolith Soft. I mean, Monolith Soft hasn't really made a bad JRPG. You know,
Recently, in
no,
my
just
opinion.
in general, none of the
Okay.
RPGs they've made have been like there isn't Monolith Soft hasn't made a JRPG where I'm like fuck this studio. Whereas Square Enix has made tons of like historic franchises used to be good. Have they like Final Fantasy isn't what it used to be.
Mm.
Um, I mean, even there are Western studios that used to be good, like BioWare. When was the last really good BioWare RPG?
Whew. I want to say something like, because I know people said that what was that high fantasy one they come up with? Dragon Age was the last good one,
Dragon
but I
Age
never played that one.
Inquisition, which
Yeah.
sucks. Yeah, I said it.
Um,
Dragon Age Inquisition sucks. Yes, I said it, and I mean it too.
last one, there was a Baldur's Gate they made. I had no idea. I guess
Mass
Mass
Effect
Effect
2.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mass Effect 2. And Mass Effect 2 was a long ass time ago. All right. Like
Yep.
Mass Effect 3 was some good ideas, but it was rushed. Dragon Age 2 was rushed. Dragon Age Inquisition was an MMO that they were like, shit, people don't want an MMO. Let's turn it to an RPG, and it's trash.
Hmm.
Um, we all know what happened with Anthem.
Yeah.
Star Wars: The Old Republic.
I mean,
How about
Star
that?
Wars: The Old Republic is one of the best Knights of the Old Republic spin-offs ever, but it's
Hmm.
still at the end of the day a fucking MMO, which an
Okay.
MMO is never going to have the depth and complexity of a dedicated RPG. Because you can't, because you have to make something that's going to appeal to everyone. Whereas a single player RPG is going to be niche by its very nature, but that means you can get
Mm.
really deep into that niche. You know.
That's a very interesting take. I'd never heard. All right. Not judging, but yeah.
Well, I mean, look at it like this, right? Like some of the best, highly regarded, critically speaking, RPGs of all time are very niche. They aren't for everyone.
Yeah.
Like Fallout 1, 2, New Vegas, those aren't for everyone. I wouldn't like if you're someone who's like, I want to play a first or third person shooter that has great combat. I would not tell you to play Fallout New Vegas. Go play Fallout 4. But
Yeah.
Fallout 4 is not an RPG. you know.
All right. It's why I don't think it'd be wise to recommend someone that new Yakuza game if they were looking for a beat 'em up.
Yeah. The new Yakuza game is more of a JRPG. Now, if you want to play a Yakuza game that's more of a beat 'em up, go play the remasters of Yakuza 1, 2, 0, 3, 4, 5. Those games are great. Now, if only Sega would bring over Yakuza Dead Souls and those two Yakuza games that take place during the Meiji period,
Right.
that would be fucking amazing.
Oh, dang, they didn't do it because I remember that had come out for the PS3. That was a good time.
Yeah, the Dead Souls I enjoyed because it's basically like like
It's a nice what if zombie.
yeah, it's a nice what if zombie thing. But seeing Kazuma Kiryu when you finally get him activate his scenario, and he comes into Kamurocho and he starts beating the shit out of zombies because like he's
Mhm.
so badass, but it's not doing anything because they're
Freaking
zombies.
guy with a Barrett Gatling gun arm. That was so.
No, he's beating up the zombies because that's what he does in his games. But they're zombies. Like beating them up
Right.
isn't. You gotta shoot him in the head. And then he gets his anti-material rifle, and then he starts killing them. I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. Yeah, I'm a huge Yakuza series, so I actually have that game on the
Mm.
PS2 or the PS3. I forget. I think it's the PS3. I like the Yakuza series and even the spin-offs. I wish the Japan only spin-offs came here because
Right.
I love the Yakuza franchise.
Yeah, and I remember playing it back on the PS2 when Mark Hamill voiced Majima. That was
Yeah,
something.
yeah. He was just doing his best Joker impression.
Yeah.
I'm Goro Majima.
Oh, buddy.
Mad Dog Majima. Yeah, I mean Yakuza is a great series. But I would say, like I said, Yakuza give like people who say that there was no way Final Fight could be translated into 3D.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, Capcom didn't fucking know how to do it because Sega did it with the Yakuza
Yeah.
series. That is a 3D
And
beat 'em up, and it
I'd
works.
say Rockstar also did it with the Warriors and Bully as well.
Eh, Bully isn't really a beat 'em up though. Bully's like GTA Light. The
Okay,
Warriors is a beat 'em up, but Bully's GTA Light.
sure.
Except instead of the police, it's just adults in general, and
All monitors.
yeah, instead of gangs, you've got like the little factions in the school, nerds, jocks,
Mhm.
the general bullies, and the preppies and the greasers,
Right.
and then townies. So that's that's six factions. Um, yeah, I mean, I mean, you can do, but I'm like strictly thinking like Japanese developers. Like Sega showed how you could do a 3D beat 'em up and not have it be
Right.
stupid, and so there was no excuse for Final Fight Streetwise being the dumpster fire that it was.
Hmm.
There's no, other than the people didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Capcom
Right.
USA just had no. They were like, I don't know, shit. But I don't know. We're almost over. So anyone else have any other topic they want to bring up before we wrap things up?
Mm,
Man, I started playing Devil May Cry 3 again.
awesome. Which
The
version?
the Apology edition.
Oh, you mean the one that's slightly easier?
Yeah.
Just slightly.
I had the original
Same here. I
kick you in the
barely beat
balls
it.
edition.
Yeah, kick you in the nuts
where
version.
Yeah, where if you lost the mission, some of those missions could take like 20 minutes if you didn't know what you're doing. You had to start the whole damn thing over again if you died. Unless you got one of those the gold orbs. But yeah, that was that was one hell of a game. If you had the original one before the
Yeah.
before they came out with the special edition and made things, slightly more manageable.
And that's why everyone's like, yeah, I love Clover. I'm like, some of those games are too fucking hard. Like God Hand. God Hand's too
Oh
goddamn
yeah.
hard.
No,
It is
that's right.
too fucking hard.
Beautiful Joe, first one, could get mean at times.
Oh yeah, both of them. Beautiful Joe 1 and 2. Both of them are too damn hard.
Yeah.
Like
No good.
they're not even like, and there's different levels. Okay, there's difficulty where you feel accomplishment that you're mastering the game, and then there's difficulty where it's just like, this is just mean spirited. And
I would, yeah.
unfortunately,
Sorry, no, that's what I said. They took all their notes from the Mega Man X789's book.
yeah, but Mega Man X 7, 8, and 9 are just poorly designed games.
Sure.
They're not hard because they're meant to be hard. They're hard because they're just badly made. Because Keiji Inafune's terrible at managing people, as we can see. Because Inti Creates, when he was managing them to make Mighty Number 9, and we know Inti Creates can make really fucking amazing games. And yet, when Keiji Inafune was managing them, they made Mighty Number 9, which is like a C grade game. But then, when Keiji Inafune wasn't managing them, they did Gunvolt. They've done the Gunvolt series, and they've done that Bloodstained spinoff that's like an NES style game. And they did shit. What was that other one? They did the Blaster Master Zero trilogy.
Right.
So I mean, really, like, and all those games are well made. The only one that was poorly made is Mighty Number 9. Think about that. The one, the one. Look, all of the common denominator, the one thing that wasn't like the other was that Keiji Inafune was involved with that one project. And if you look at the history of his little concept game development house, like game design house, they had 4 projects they were supposed to make. They only made 2 of them, which means they only have a 50% success rate. That's abysmal.
Right.
That's fucking embarrassing. Yeah. He wasted millions of people's of dollars of people's money on projects that never went off the ground. They did the Yaiba Ninja.
Oh God, I remember buying that one because it looks so beautiful, but it's so lame.
Average. Yeah, it's average.
It's really bad.
Yeah, it's average. They did Yaiba. They did the design for Yaiba, and then they did Mighty Number 9. But they were supposed to do Kale, the Penguin Pirate, which was basically an animal version of Dynasty Warriors, which sounds cool.
Yeah,
that never went off the ground. And then like the numerous Mega Man like spin-offs. Oh, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. I'm like, man, I just don't. You know.
Yeah, I guess he had one fluke, although I'm not sure if this is the same guy. He's not the same guy behind RE4, is he?
Who, Keiji Inafune? No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
that's
never
Shinji
mind.
Mikami. Shinji Mikami is the RE guy.
He's at Tango now. Never mind.
Yeah. Shinji Mikami, he's pretty cool. I like him.
Yeah, you know, like I don't particularly like The Evil Within, but like I said, it has an audience for someone. It wasn't for me though. His latest one, which I don't think I'll be playing because I don't have a PS5. What's it? Ghostwire Tokyo. That looked curious. I was interested in that. But yeah, no, I have no reason to.
I mean,
have
if
nothing
you have a
against Shinji
PC,
Mikami.
you might be able to play it. It's on
Oh,
PC as
sweet,
well.
sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good to know then, because I was interested in Deathloop as well because I like the Dishonored games, but I think that one is stuck on PS5.
Yeah. I recently got the Arcane like special collection.
Mm-hmm.
Where basically you can get like the Arcane games, and it's like you get Prey, and I'm like, oh man, so it's like that awesome Prey game that came out in like the mid 2000s. No, it's the Arcane Prey that like they were supposed to be Prey 2, and then they fucking rebooted it because of Bethesda. I'm like,
Right.
I don't like that one, because the idea behind Prey 2 initially, with the studio originally was going to make it, was that like you've been abducted into space. And like
System Shock?
no, you've been abducted by aliens, and so like you've basically made a life on this planet where all these other alien species have been abducted and just like found their way to. So you're a bounty hunter on this this like outcast planet, and like that's a really cool concept. And then they fucking did Prey 2, where it turns out, oh well, in Prey 2, spoiler alert, in Prey 2. You think you're a human being, but you turn out to be one of the creatures who has created a false human being in order to understand human beings, in order to communicate with them. It's fucking stupid. I'm sorry. I like Arcane, but that Prey 2 was trash.
Oh yeah, I mean that's fine. Go ahead, Kenoshi.
Well, I also have one last topic, and that's I've also been playing Horizon Zero Dawn. I know that came out around the same time as Breath of the Wild, and it's a pretty decent game. It has obviously, I think that game got unfairly criticized because it is a different game. So
I mean, the problem with Horizon Zero Dawn isn't that it's a bad game. It's that it came out at the same time as Breath of the Wild. And if you compare it to Breath of the Wild, because I mean, it is a different game. It's Western, but if you like, it still like has this open world. You're hunting things and you're going places. You're exploring. It just doesn't do it as well as Breath of the Wild.
That's true. Like
Yeah.
where Breath of the Wild excels in world exploration and world design, Horizon lacks in but makes up in for a huge variety in creature and boss design.
Oh yeah, oh
And
yeah,
Because
story and the I think and story. Breath of the Wild, you kind of have to find the story,
yeah.
but you
Or the
know,
story
because
finds you.
but
You're wandering around and you just get a flashback. It's like what? I wasn't expecting this.
yeah, and but yeah, I enjoyed the lore, the world that this game set up. It
Yeah,
kind of reminds me of obviously it reminds me of like tribal uh
oh wow,
tribal
yeah,
intrigue versus with a combination of that short story that the villages was inspired by. I
okay.
don't remember the name of it,
yeah. I know
but
what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, my only issue with Horizon, like I said, is that the stuff that they really wanted to tout, oh, you can explore, you can do all this, and it's like a game came out that did it so much better that it kind of
yeah,
made their game look inferior by comparison.
Right.
it's not it's not without its hangups. Like it's at least
For
on
one,
PC, it's kind of a bit janky, and those facial animations are just
right.
Yeah, it's
really
Uncanny
bad.
Valley. Yeah,
One
Really
of
bad.
my
yeah.
one of
You
my
can.
biggest
No, go ahead.
Yeah, one of my biggest gripes about it was that its combat is entirely designed for you to be fighting beasts. You know, you're fighting them from long range. You're using your wits to go ahead and outmaneuver them. But
Yeah,
then towards the end game, you start fighting human enemies, and it's awful. It's an awful experience. They are suited to completely botch your tactics. They wear helmets. You can't shoot them in the head. They can take a hit or two, so your melee weapons are already pretty
shit.
uninspiring.
Yeah,
Eh, yeah, so that end game is just off, and they pretty much just throw like an actual Metal Gear at you that doesn't behave like an animal like these mechanical animals do. It just stays stationary and shoots all sorts of arsenal at you,
yeah.
which just wasn't fun. But
Well,
go
I mean,
on.
most
Oh,
games
I
aren't good. Like, I'll be 100% honest with you. Most open world games aren't good at the final conflict. I mean, let's keep it 100%. The final boss fight in Breath of the Wild is shit.
Oh, it's the worst.
It
It's
is.
so
Yeah,
dull.
it's like the developers are like, we gotta
Fuck it.
tap out.
Yeah, we got to wrap
We
this
gotta
up. We got to wrap
Yeah.
this up. Like
so
that Dave Chappelle
you
sketch
know,
for the wrap it up box. Wrap it up.
like
Wrap it
for,
up.
like forget about balancing or forget about creativity. They want or the publishers are breathing down our neck. We need to produce
No,
something.
our
That game
boss.
did get
Our
yeah.
boss was like, because they're a first party studio. Look, we need to get this shit out. It's got to
Mm.
come out at the same time. We got to get it out. And let me tell you something. That is the laziest fucking final boss fight I've ever seen in a Legend of Zelda game. It is
Yeah.
some
Oh,
sorry
it was
ass
pretty
shit.
bad.
It is
Yeah, it was
spectacle with
pretty
no depth at all.
I mean, literally, you ride your horse, you do the jump off your horse, and literally, like, Princess Zelda shoots a light arrow or, like, does some shit to cause his weak spot to glow, and it's almost like there should be an arrow saying, hit boss, shoot boss here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, what the fuck? Seriously? For
Seriously,
real?
like the
Yeah.
way to make that boss even more remotely interesting is if it was chasing you all throughout Hyrule, and everybody just scrammed while you just ran away from it. But
Well,
no,
that
it's completely in a sandbox
look,
right there.
do you
That was
honestly
kind of
think, considering how poorly that game runs when there's a lot of shit going on, that they could have done that?
Oh dang! Well, I
No,
can't argue that.
no. Your game would have crashed once they got to the first province.
Honestly,
Oh no!
the Ganon boss fight they had before that was a lot more fun. Um,
What, Twilight Princess?
no. Because just before you fight
Oh,
that
Skyward
last
Sword.
final
Skyward Sword.
boss, you fight two other forms of Ganon. One that's crawls on all fours, and one that's like a warrior. I mean, those were a lot better boss fights than that big giant Ganon to have you fight at the end.
Eh, eh. I mean, my problem with Breath of the Wild is that Ganon, even if you fight Ganon at the the previous Ganon boss fight, it's just variations of the shit you already fought in the Zelda Megazords. So it kind of doesn't really feel all that special. And
Right,
if you've
right.
mastered how to use your shield block, your ultimate block thing, like Ganon's kind of easy in that form anyway.
Sure.
I think and I made this complaint when I reviewed the game. I said it's kind of fucked up when minor enemies wander, well, like minor enemies, like normal enemies walking around in the world are tougher fights than the final boss, which is a problem in a
Yeah,
Legend of
it's
Zelda
true.
game.
I hesitate to admit I had not beaten a single Lionel in my playthrough when there was one just wandering around before Ganon's castle, and I had to kill it. I literally went out of my way to avoid it. Like, and of course, that could be people blaming me not to learn the system. I mean, sure, if I gave it some time, I'm sure I'd go ahead and whoop them silly. But just I'm just giving my first experiences is all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lionel's.
if you're
No, go ahead, Koshi.
if you're powered up enough, like, and yeah, if you know the
If you know
Lionel
their
patterns,
patterns, yeah.
Yeah.
you can cheese them. You
I
can
mean,
cheese them.
they're actually Lionels are actually really easy to cheese because you can
Mm.
if you basically do the ultimate block, you can jump on their back, or you can sneak up on them and jump on their back and use your weapon to attack them while you're on their back. And here's the thing: here's a little secret. If you attack a Lionel while riding on their back with your weapon, it doesn't take any it doesn't damage your
Stamina?
weapon. So basically,
Mm.
if you just keep on doing that while you're fighting a Lionel, you can
Mm.
kick their ass by jumping on their back and then stabbing them with your weapon while you're on their back, and they basically it doesn't degrade your weapon.
One of my
So
biggest one of my biggest
go ahead.
mistakes playing that game is that I kept playing it like classic Zelda or Dark Souls, where it was all entirely based off reaction and hitting them when an opening occurred with that, but I wasn't going ahead and getting creative with it. Like finding something like that, you'd had to experiment.
No, you
I
can
kind
play
of
it like that. You're just gonna go through a lot of weapons, which I mean, to be honest with you, in the beginning of the game, that's how they kind of want you to play it. But
Mm,
once you begin to master the timing and how to use your perfect block and stuff like that, like the problem with Breath of the Wild is that once you get to like halfway, 2/3 through the game, fights become meaningless because you found the best weapons you can get and you want to
mm.
save them for the final rush into Hyrule Castle. You don't want to, it's like, I could fight this guy, but why when I could fight my way into the castle?
All right.
It's like,
yeah
I'm saving my weapons.
and they didn't have to do this, but I kind of this is a small little detail I liked about the game, how they contextualized why things respawn in the world. You know why enemies and stuff respawn.
I like that they contextualized it. I do. It's a
Yeah,
nice little thing, but
I mean,
honestly, I could have lived without it
yeah.
because
Yeah,
every time it
yeah.
pops up, I'm like, okay, here we go
Like,
again. Yep,
my,
yep, yep.
my problem with Breath of the Wild with that is that it feels like everything you do has no purpose. like shit you do in the game, it feels like the world is static and it's meant to maintain the status quo. I think Breath of the Wild would have been better had the things you do had some effect on the world. I mean, the only real effect that you have is when you free the Zelda Megazords. There's
Mm.
environmental changes. Like, hey,
Well, the thing
I freed the camel Megazord, so now there's no longer a sandstorm. I
Yeah,
freed the Zora Megazord, the elephant Megazord, so now
right.
it's not raining all the time in Zora's domain. Like, I think it would have been cool. Like, I mean, hear my idea out. Wouldn't it have been cool that after if you go to the desert, the Great Desert, and you
Mm.
fight the Yiga clan, the Yiga ninjas are no longer trying to fight you because they're like,
Oh, I so
if he
wish.
fucking
Yeah.
killed our master, we're just normal dudes running around. I don't want to die, you know. So those dudes stop fighting you. You get new enemies fighting you, like new disguised enemies trying to take you out, or just a new enemy entirely, not even disguised. Wouldn't it have been cool if like the fortress town that used to be where the soldiers used to be, like you basically clear out a fortress and they send soldiers to take that fortress. So like now enemies stop spawning around there because soldiers are patrolling the area. You get none of that. It's just the fucking status quo being constantly maintained and it's boring. It's
No, I
like,
hear you. It's very much hampered by its idea that the world runs on a schedule that can't be broken, as you
yeah,
said.
yeah. And
Well,
it's just
the thing about the Breath of the Wild, it feels like people, when they were meeting about making this game, it's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we made a Zelda game that could do this, this, and this?
Yeah,
Nobody
and they didn't tie it together.
until
They didn't tie it together. That's the problem.
yeah, until nearly the 0 hour. But yeah, it's like, but what's the that one guy that was probably quite the whole meeting. All the meetings probably said like, yeah, but how's this all gonna tie together? They're probably like,
fuck it. We'll
we'll
figure
create
it out.
Megazords.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I'll give you an example. That final boss fight could have been saved with just 3 minor changes. Instead of you fighting Ganondorf in his like corrupted form, wouldn't it have made more sense for Ganondorf to be in his beast form first? And then like maybe you damage him a little bit, and then but he's still too powerful, and then the Zelda Megazords show up and blast his ass, and then he goes down into his humanoid form, and then you have to fight him. Wouldn't that make more sense? That would have made more sense. No, we can't do that. No. It's small shit. It's like Breath of the Wild has small shit wrong with it that would have made it a better game.
Or you have some games that just throw a whole bunch of enemies at you at the end of the game, trying to create tension, but it only just is like, this is annoying. This isn't creative. You're just throwing a gauntlet of enemies at me.
Yeah.
And
Souls
making
too.
them a little tougher.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt about the first Tomb Raider.
I mean,
I think.
Well, how they raise difficulty in Breath of the Wild is that they make enemies have more health. That's it. They just have more health. Enemies become more tankier. So if you aren't fighting perfectly, you basically your weapons are going to degrade faster, because basically if you fight perfectly, like when you do that perfect dodge thing and your weapon, you attack with your weapon, it degrades slower when you hit them. So it lasts longer. Yeah. So essentially speaking, you're forced to do high level play against higher enemies, but they have so much health that even then your weapons feel like it feels like you're fighting enemies with a paper mache sword in Breath of the Wild at higher difficulty levels. Which
at some point I had stuck with the Master Sword, simply because I just was over breaking my weapons.
Yeah, and that's the smart thing to do. But the problem is that the Master Sword's base damage is only 30. It's like the 3rd strongest weapon in the game. But the other 2 weapons that are stronger than the Master Sword are so much stronger than the Master Sword that it's like, why the fuck am I using this? Except unless I'm fighting a Guardian or one of Ganondorf's evil forms. It's just like. I mean, like if they gave you the ability to fortify your weapons, or like if you get enough materials, you can take it to a Goron blacksmith and they can make a mastercrafted weapon that doesn't break, I'd be like, okay, this is cool. So now I have weapons that like I can just keep and use. No.
Yeah, and they kind of expect you, because one thing that I thought was annoying is because you do end up getting rewarded these moderately good weapons at the end of each dungeon, at the end of each corner of the world, essentially. But they still break, but they give you an option that if you gather the materials and bring it back here, you can make it. But
yeah,
that's already some other busy work.
Yeah, but those weapons are only like 4th tier. They're not like the Zora Spear that they're like, this is a special Zora Spear. It's really powerful. Actually, it kind of sucks. There's better spears in other areas of the game. Like the Gorons are like, yeah, you can use this hammer. It's really powerful. Actually, it's not really that good. It's okay, but yeah, it's like, what's the fucking point?
Right.
Why?
Right. And as far as I understand, you couldn't even upgrade them at the fairy fountains either.
Nope.
Because I honestly could never pay their premium, so I really could never.
The only thing you can upgrade in Breath of the Wild at the fairy fountains are your armors. That's it. Like you can upgrade your armors, and it's kind of expensive, but you can do it. That's it. It's like Breath of the Wild feels like a lot of disparate ideas put into a Legend of Zelda game, and then there's no central thing to tie it all together. They tried, but it didn't quite come together. And I know they were like, well, we were tired of the Zelda format. And I'm like, I understand that you guys as developers were tired of the Zelda formula, but I personally liked it.
Sure, I hear that. Because I played with my sister. That's kind of our tradition. We always play Zelda games together. That's why this one took me so long to beat because I'd visit her maybe once a month and we try to get like a whole day's playthrough through.
Hmm.
But I'd always have to relearn the game, having been gone so long. But yeah, she didn't like it as much. She thought the story was actually almost too minimal for her to enjoy the world, despite how organic they sold it as. She just kind of felt it was empty. Like she said, it reminded her of something like Eco or Shadow of the Colossus, where the
Yeah.
world is very beautiful and natural looking, but
Well, it's very
just has no attachment.
post-apocalyptic. It's very
Yeah,
post-apocalyptic, and I mean, to be honest, almost every Legend of Zelda game is post-apocalyptic. Like the first Legend of Zelda game is post-apocalyptic. Legend of Zelda
yep.
2 isn't. Legend of Zelda 3 is you're in the midst of trying to prevent an apocalypse. Uh,
4 is some
Ocarina
whack
of
thing.
Time, half of the game takes place post-apocalyptic.
I
The
guess you could
vast
say
majority of
Majora's.
it.
I guess you could say Majora's Mask is pre-apocalypse.
Yeah, you're
It's
trying to
like
prevent an apocalypse.
yeah,
Wind
Wind Waker is
Waker,
post-apocalypse.
post-apocalyptic. Twilight Princess, you're
Contemporary
preventing.
apocalypse.
Yeah, you're preventing an apocalypse. Skyward Sword, pre-apocalypse,
Post pre because it
post pre.
happens after one,
Yeah,
but
it's
before
post
another.
pre. Yeah, it's weird. Breath of the Wild, post-apocalyptic. Matter of fact, Breath of the Wild is like if you think Link is a badass. Look, this is how bad Link got his ass whooped by Ganondorf in Breath of the Wild. He got his ass kicked so bad by Ganon's forces that they put his ass in a coma and it took him 100 years to heal from it. He got his ass beat. He got knocked the
Yeah.
fuck out. He needed Smokey hanging over. Hey man, you got knocked the fuck out. Did anyone catch the name, the license plate on that truck that ran your ass over? Um, yeah, Breath of the Wild. Like I said, I like the openness. I like the open world. I like the organic thing. But I really do miss dungeons and dedicated weapons and
Yeah, that's true.
tools.
I'd be willing to sacrifice dedicated. Sorry, I'd be willing to sacrifice dedicated weapons for bigger dungeons if I had to choose between the two. Because the thing is, the shrines they were a little novelty, but I just ended up ignoring most of them
They
outside of
started,
being a warp spot.
yeah, they started running together for me because I
Yeah.
did all 120 shrines, and I can tell you right now, only about 10 of them are memorable. The rest of them all run together because they basically are broken down into challenges, environmental challenges where you have to do some type of like outside challenge, like climb this mountain, climb up to this point on this mountain, and once you get to the top, the shrine opens, and you go inside and get a spirit orb. Um, like basically Breath of the Wild, like there's only 10 dungeons that really 10 shrines that actually feel like this is kind of cool. There's the one where you have to fight your way on an island where you lose all your shit and you have to survive. That's kind of memorable because you have to survive. There's one where you have to fight your way into the Temple of Time,
Hmm.
like the ruins of the Temple of Time, and you have to run a gauntlet of fucking guardians.
Yep.
And that's memorable just because you have to run a fucking gauntlet of guardians. I mean, they're
It's
dead guardians, but I mean they're stationary, like fucked up guardians, but their lasers still work. Um, and those guardians, they're just BMOS. You're killing BMOS. That's all they are. They're
they're just
just
very lethal BMOS.
yeah, that can move. And then let's see. You've got a few of the puzzle ones that might be memorable to someone. I mean, I mean, basically, the shrines just kind of exist just as an excuse for people to have gameplay so that they can do shit and upgrade their stats. And that's about it. Like most of them, by and large, aren't really memorable or really game changing. And the dungeons are the Zelda Megazords are too small. Like you can complete them in
Yeah.
under 10 minutes if you know what you're doing.
At
Which
first,
is
for someone for someone like me, I could see how short they were. Really, what's I suppose I hate to call this, but it's a gimmick. Is how you sort of manipulate them to to beat them. But the thing is, it's kind of like Rubik's cube. Once you know, you know it.
Yeah, like once you figure out how to do it, it's like, oh, this is not difficult at all. Why
And
the
also, they
fuck?
kind of look Samuel inside their stone. They're very Greek statue like. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're just it's. I mean, look, I'm not saying that Breath of the Wild is a terrible game. I'm just saying that when people say it's the best Legend of Zelda ever and it's like the best game ever, I'm like, slow your roll, slow down, pump the brakes. It's good. It's not great. It's
Like myself,
good. It's not great.
yeah, I'm no salesman. Like myself, I very much love the game, but of course, like I said, I'm not gonna lose my mind over someone's opinion. I can understand why someone would like it. Like I said, I remember when I played Twilight Princess with my sister. She actually thought it was trying to ape Ocarina of Time way too much. I thought, I
It
don't know.
is.
It feels like a dark fantasy
It,
Zelda for me.
it is. Twilight Princess, in terms of game design, basically feels like, to me, it feels like the Zelda team was like Ocarina of Time. It's widely lauded. It's considered one of the best games of all time. But if you take a step back and look at it critically, there's a lot of flaws with that game.
Mm.
Twilight Princess is a better Ocarina of Time. That's all it really is. It's like, imagine Ocarina of Time done better. For one thing, Ocarina of Time had Kid Link and Adult Link. Being Kid Link in Ocarina of Time sucks. It's like you're like biding your time till you can get to the good part of the game where you can be an adult and use your better equipment. They fixed that in Twilight Princess with Wolf Link. Wolf Link is in some ways more lethal as a wolf than he is as a human being or in his humanoid form, because he's got his feral attack, which is just fucking insane. Plus he can sense smells, he's animal senses and sense shit that he normally can't sense in his humanoid form. So you don't feel like, oh great, I have one form that's completely fucking useless. Unlike Kid Link, which is like, oh, I have this shitty Kokiri sword, which it's a blunt sword. Yay. Um, and let's see what else. How you can affect the world, like I mean, didn't it? I don't know. This bothered me in Ocarina of Time, where you save Zora's domain. I'm using air quotes here. You save Zora's domain, but it's still frozen. You save
Yeah, that
Zora's
bugged the crap
domain
out of me.
in Twilight Princess, you unthaw those motherfuckers and they come back. You actually
Yeah,
feel like you have an effect on the world.
it's
Um,
true.
kind of like which kind of like where Breath of the Wild kind of fails, because you feel like, oh, I'm making all this progress. Yeah, but everything's just gonna get reset in 7 in-game days when all the enemies spawn all over again, and some of them will be more powerful.
One aspect of the GameCube Zelda games I really hated was they're really bloated world map sizes that they try to go ahead and fill up with interesting enemy encounters. Because I know it evokes the idea of going back to like Link to the Past or the old SNES Zeldas, where it was just a lot of swaths of land that you'd encounter an enemy here and there. But when I'm riding my horse, I was like, oh, okay, here come those Bokoblins coming to attack me again. I
And
better outrun them.
Breath of the Wild.
Oh well, yeah, that too. Yeah, I think yeah. Let's go ahead and
Hey,
extend that to
hey,
Breath of the Wild too.
hey guys, I'm gonna duck out. I'll talk to you guys. Talk to you guys.
All right.
Talk to you
Sure
guys
thing.
Tuesday if you're available for tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think we'll wrap it up. Yeah, this was a Memorial Day cast. We went a little bit over, but fuck it. It's Memorial
Nice.
Day. It's a holiday, damn
Yeah,
it. It's a holiday,
precisely.
damn it. So that's the end of the cast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe. Anything you guys want to pimp out before we wrap things up?
Not
Do
I.
you have a channel you wanna?
No, no, I'm not a content creator, but hey, just tune into this one.
All right, thank you. Have a good night. Peace.
Peace.
Shit. Damn, I hit the wrong thing.